The vessel's deck lights threw a clean circle over wet steel while the horizon stayed flat and dull. I stood by the A-frame, helmet on, waiting for the green from the winch operator. South Pacific, 200 miles off any charted traffic, above a patch of seafloor mapped by contract and whispered about after hours. We called the ROV Narwhal because the manipulator had a single long extension that could snag cores without tearing them. At 3:17 we began the drop. The sea had a steady roll, nothing violent. The deck smelled of hydraulic oil and salt. I checked the tether splice one more time with Finn, felt the braid under my glove, and raised a thumb. The A-frame took the load. The ROV cleared the rail and slid into black water. We had come for manganese nodules and a rumored ridge of glassy basalt that looked wrong on multibeam. The client wanted samples. Our chief scientist, Dr. Meera Patel, wanted to sink a few hours on a side scan survey because the pattern on the last pass had shown symmetry a lava flow does not make. The captain only cared about the weather window. I cared about bringing Narwhal back intact. The tether drum hummed while the vehicle descended, status lights blinking through the splash zone until the sea swallowed them. On the monitor, the surface dissolved into blue haze, then darkness scattered with plankton. We watched the depth ticks climb and the temperature curve settle. "Comms clear," Lila said from the console. She handled navigation and video switching. Her tone stayed level. She always kept it level, which helped. I settled on the pilot seat and brought the thrusters out of their locked position. Tiny nudges so the control loops would wake up smoothly. Finn ran the power budget and the fiber link, eyes flicking between a network graph and the vehicle health stack. Dr. Patel leaned on the rack with the sonar feed. No one raised a voice. No one had to. The only change in the control room was the faint hum when the APU took a load bump. At 4,000 meters, we swung into a gentle drift toward the survey box. The multibeam map filled the big screen, grayscale ridges and pits. A flat plane sat in the middle with an almost circular dark patch and a starburst of faint lines. I had seen similar patterns where currents sorted sand around a boulder. This one had angles too clean for sand. "How old?" I asked without taking my hands off the sticks. "Older than our instruments can guess," Dr. Patel said. It was her dry answer for any question she did not want to answer yet. She tapped the side scan settings, widened the swath, and took a slow sweep. The ping returned a honeycomb. 6-sided tiles, each about 3 meters across, set into sediment that had grown a thin skin of life. Between the tiles, seams. At the center, a hatch. No rust, no coral growth, no scratches from trawls. It looked asleep in a room with no air. "Take us lower," she said. I descended in half-meter steps and trimmed the vehicle so the camera faced forward with a slight down angle. The manipulator arm rested along the frame. The sonar showed the hatch as a blank, where the beam refused to echo. Finn frowned at the power readout. "We're picking up a slow rise on motor temps," he said. "Not enough to worry about. Enough to mark. The temperature of the deep was constant and honest. Anything that drifted outside the curve meant small work was happening somewhere inside our own gear." Lila shifted the lighting to a tight beam, and the main camera showed a surface that caught the light, but did not reflect it back in a way my eyes expected. I moved Narwhal in, and dust came up from the sediment. A few shrimp darted, casual as passengers on a late train. The hatch had no latches, no visible hinges, just a circular depression the size of a dinner plate at its center, a coin slot for a giant. Dr. Patel slid a transducer hardware pack toward me. "Let's try a gentle chirp," she said. It was not a command. It was a plan hung in the air where objections could land if needed. The ship carried a low-frequency source for sub-bottom profiling. The small pack in my hands was for targeted pings from the ROV frame. I mounted it on the auxiliary rail and routed the cable. Finn watched the fiber link for errors. "Keep it small," I said. She nodded. We set the output to a whisper and tuned the chirp from 50 to 200 hertz. It would brush the edge of what large animals use to listen to each other in the dark. I eased the ROV until the transducer sat half a meter from the hatch center. The water looked still, but the depth always had a slow drift. I adjusted for it, held position, and gave Lila a nod. Her finger hovered over the trigger. For a second, I watched my own breath fog the faceplate and cleared it with a knuckle. "Now," Dr. Patel said. Lila pressed. The monitor showed nothing. The speakers made no sound. The instruments listened. Finn counted silently to 5. The seabed looked unchanged. "Again," Dr. Patel said. Lila pulsed it. I nudged the vehicle a touch closer so the beam would hit the depression square. The third chirp came back wrong. Not louder, not echo. The return looked like a shadow that had decided it would push back, a smear across the waterfall display that refused to be noise. My hands settled on the sticks, steady, waiting for drift. The hatch's central depression deepened by a few millimeters, as if something under it had woken and leaned toward us. The sediment around the tiles shifted, a ring barely visible, and a faint stream of bubbles ran along the seam like soda in a glass. Finn's screen flashed a trouble alert. "EMI spike," he said. The fiber link error count ticked up and then froze, as if a hand had pressed 2 fingers against the wire to remind it who owned this room. "Cut ping," Dr. Patel said. Lila's hand left the switch. The water around the hatch held still again. The ring of bubbles stopped. I backed Narwhal 10 meters and kept the lights tight. The manipulator cam looked past the gripper at the darkness. Nothing else moved. The seabed resisted drama. It always did. We watched a minute, and then another. The EM noise stayed elevated. The winch operator asked over the intercom if we still wanted the tow to keep creeping the grid. The captain asked if we planned to bring the vehicle up before we lost the window. Dr. Patel told both of them we would decide in 5 minutes. During those 5 minutes, the hatch opened half a centimeter. There was no sound in the room. It was too deep for sound to travel from us to it and back with any speed. The screen showed a thin line. A seam had changed state. Lila leaned forward until her forehead almost touched the glass. She breathed out so slowly, the air barely moved. "We didn't send a command," she said. "We sent a nudge," Dr. Patel said. "A door can respond to a touch without calling it a conversation." She did not sound proud or afraid. She sounded busy. I turned the ROV so the manipulator would have a clean angle to the center. The gripper was titanium with rubber pads. It could twist a valve handle or lift a crate. "We are not prying it," Dr. Patel said calmly, reading what I had lined up. "We watch it. We measure it. We slow down." She reached over my shoulder and turned the lights down 1 step. The scene darkened to a dim pool, and that made the camera gain kick in. The hatch edge sharpened. The seam bled darkness in a way water does not. The temperature sensor held at 1.2 Celsius. The pressure gauge was steady. Finn cursed under his breath. Not loud, not angry. He used the word he saved for when gear did the wrong thing for clean reasons. "We've got a clock," he said. "Where?" Lila asked. "In the EMI noise," he said. "Look at the modulation. It's cycling." On his screen, the noise traced a wave with a smooth rise and a fast drop, then a pause. then a double step. It repeated every 13 seconds. It was not our gear. Our gear sang in precise tones bred by regulators and boards. This carried a signature that had never been on our racks. "Could be a vent," the captain said over the intercom. I knew he had his feet planted wide on the bridge and a hand on the rail near the DP console. He did not like anything under his keel with opinions. "Or gas," he said. "We should move." The dynamic positioning thrusters kept the ship's bow into the swell with small corrections. The ocean did not care about his sentences. Dr. Patel kept her eyes on the hatch. "Give us 10 more minutes," she said. He did not argue. He breathed once into the mic and cut the channel. The hatch raised another millimeter. The bubbles started again, creeping along 6 seams out from the center. I did not like those bubbles. They were too neat. I eased Narwhal back another 5 meters. "What's behind it?" Lila asked. "Space," Dr. Patel said, "and then something that built this, or what is left of it." Finn pulled up the vehicle's compass. The heading indicator spun a slow circle, drifted, and stopped. Gyros coped. The magnetics did not. He toggled a shield mode. The number steadied. We were no longer the only ones awake in the room. The machine had turned its face toward us. I could feel that truth in the way our screens lost their calm. The motion of the ROV was fine. The link was fine. But everything we used to know the outside world from here had acquired grit. "Do we leave?" Lila asked. She never asked lightly. Dr. Patel put a hand on my chair. "Not yet," she said. "We came to learn what this is. Now it is learning us." No pride, no drama. She said it the way a doctor gives a patient step-by-step instructions for how to sit up after a long sleep. "Let's turn off everything that speaks," I said. "No active sonar, no active anything. Lights at minimum, passive listening only." Dr. Patel agreed. Kalila carried it out. The room dimmed. The fans behind the racks stayed loud enough to prove the ship was still a machine too. Finn clipped a battery scope across the ROV bus to see if anything else climbed. Stable. I eased Narwhal to the side and thought about escape paths, tether angles, and snag points. The hatch rose 2 more millimeters, and then stopped. The bubbles slowed. The EMI wave continued its 13-second pattern. Lila made a face and rubbed the base of her skull with 2 fingers. She caught herself and folded her hands again. No one mentioned anything the body reported that had no place on a chart. We kept our words for the parts we could measure. On the hydrophones, a low noise had entered the water. It was below anything a human would call a note. Finn filtered and zoomed until we could see it. It pulsed in a way that matched the EMI modulation. Not a match you could argue with. A match you could lay over a template and convince a judge. "It is testing range," Dr. Patel said. "Or it is counting itself." I did not ask her to pick one. She would tell us when she felt certain. We drifted another half meter with the slow, deep current, I corrected. "Captain, hold us steady," I said. "We're steady," he said. "DP is chasing something I don't see, but we're steady." The ocean had added a new vector into our little model, and the ship was compensating in tiny thruster bursts that annoyed the captain because they were not clean. The hatch opened 3 centimeters at once. I did not see a mechanism move. The seam widened, and there was a drop inside. The light fell and then vanished into black. The camera gain went up, and the noise with it. The hydrophones thudded once. The ROV rolled 1/2 degree to starboard. I corrected without thinking. Something under us had displaced water without sending up a plume. Not normal, not good. The captain swore at the DP because the bow yawed 2 degrees. He brought it back. "Close the transducer," Dr. Patel said. "I did," Lila said. "It is physically unplugged." She held up the plug with the cap on it to show the room and herself. Dr. Patel nodded. "We touched a wire none of us can see," she said. "We can still step back." It was not cowardice. It was simple risk math. I backed Narwhal another 10 meters. The tether tension increased. Finn adjusted the payout to keep the catenary clear. The hatch remained open 3 centimeters. It did not care if we moved or not. It had a schedule. "Okay," Dr. Patel said. "We close it." The room waited. "We show it the conditions that existed before we pinged," she continued. "Sound field, light, pressure gradient, everything we can control." It was a good plan, because it was the only plan that did not require a miracle. Lila took a snapshot of the environment from 10 minutes ago. She adjusted the ambient light to match. She fed the hydrophone baseline into the processors and generated a cancellation field that would make our part of the ocean read as its earlier state. Finn checked the phase delay against the CTD profile, so our signal would align where the hatch sat. He calculated the travel time for in and out. We tuned the emitters. The ship had gear for this because we did noise studies for environmental impact reports. We had built acoustic curtains for whales and fish before. We could do it in reverse for a machine that listened. It would not be perfect. The ocean does not give you perfect. It gives you tolerances. I kept the ROV steady and did not blink. Lila brought the model into agreement with itself and looked at Dr. Patel. She nodded. Lila pressed the button that would play the ocean from 10 minutes ago into the ocean now. Nothing obvious happened at first. The EMI noise did not change. The hydrophone low pulse kept its 13-second breath. The hatch stayed open. Then the DP stopped fighting. The captain's voice dropped from the intercom, as if he had stepped away. He had not. He simply no longer felt the need to brace himself. "Hold it," Dr. Patel said. "Do not touch anything." On the screen, small grains of sand that had lifted around the seam settled back down. The bubbles along the 6 seams thinned. The next low pulse arrived late by a fraction that made Finn sit up straight. He traced the delay on the graph. "Again," he said. "One more cycle." We held the cancellation field. The next pulse came later by the same fraction. The noise on the fiber link dropped 1 notch. The compass stopped its slow slide. On the screen, the hatch did not open farther. It did not close either. It waited. Waiting is a kind of language. "It expects a message," Lila said softly. "No," Dr. Patel said. "It expects us to hold state. That has been the message since the deep cooled. Consistency is safety. Variation is threat." She spoke to herself as much as to us. She was building a model in her head of a thing too old for our names. I eased Narwhal back another meter in case the hatch chose to spit something. The manipulator rested. My right hand floated near its control in case a fast move had to become a planned move. The next pulse came later again. Now by a measure you could see without instruments if you kept a steady mind. Then the hydrophones picked up a second tone hiding under the first, higher and sharper, invisible before because the lower pulse had crushed it. Lila isolated it. It sounded simple, on, off, a mark, a space. I felt the room lean forward even though no one moved. "Stop," Dr. Patel said, hand up. "We are not decoding this on a deadline." She looked at me. "Hold vehicle. Keep cancellation steady." I did. Finn put the log on a second screen and began counting intervals. writing numbers in pencil, because keys felt wrong for this. Lila watched the mix and trimmed levels when the ship's own systems drifted. The captain did not speak. The winch operator did not breathe into the line. The ocean had joined the room. The pattern under the low pulse spelled a short phrase in a language that knew only difference and sameness. It was not math. It was not code in the way I learned code. It was a request for alignment. It asked our field to lock with its field so both would stop wasting energy fighting currents the other produced. A handshake between machines. It had no room for curiosity. It had enforcement. If we did not align, it would move water until we did. It would not stop because it did not care about our hull or lungs. It only cared about state. "Can we fake it?" I asked. Dr. Patel nodded. "We mirror it and meet it halfway. We do not give it control. We show it the face of an object already at rest." Finn ran the equations with a simple feedback loop and a hard limit. Lila built a template that would take the new tone and reflect it back without echo. We would not go into sync. We would appear to sit at the edge of sync so the machine would sense stability without gaining a latch. I checked the ROV's posture one more time. Everything in me wanted to leave it where it had sat since the first pulse, as if my seat was part of the model. We engaged the mirror. The room did not change. The graphs did. The low pulses stretched and softened. The second tone dropped to a thin line, always present, never touching our limit. The hatch held at 3 centimeters. Sand settled. The fiber link error rate returned to baseline. The DP logged nominal, and the captain came back on the line with a quiet, "Whatever you did, do not stop." We did not stop. The mirrors held. The ocean accepted the echo of itself. I watched the hatch. A film of pale matter had formed along its edge. Not bacterial mat, not silt. It reminded me of the sheen oil makes on rainwater, except it did not color and it did not move. The manipulator camera saw a faint pattern in it, lines within lines, a draft of a map or a circuit or a colony. I rolled the wrist to bring the lens closer. Something on the hatch reached for the lens. It did not move fast. It did not lunge. It extended until it touched the glass, and then it stopped. The image blurred at that point. I pulled back a few centimeters. The sheen did not follow. "We're breathing on it," Lila said, and then she frowned, because that word did not belong here. "We are altering it by observing it," she corrected herself. It was not philosophy. It was heat. We were warm. It was not. We radiated even with our lights down. The manipulation of fields had noise. The hatch sensed the noise like a sleeping person senses a door open in a quiet house. "Time to leave," I said. Dr. Patel nodded. "Slow," she said. "We do not break the mirror. We take it with us and taper it away." I backed Narwhal in slow motion, 5 centimeters, then 10, compensating for the catenary pull. Finn reduced the mirror amplitude by 1% per minute. Lila watched the hatch edge. The thin pattern along the seam faded where our lights had warmed it. The low pulses lengthened further, then shortened, then found the old 13-second shape again. The second tone drifted up, searched, and flattened. The hatch did not close. It did not open. It waited as if it had done this before with other visitors who had made smaller mistakes or larger ones. At 30 meters back, a new event started. The seabed around the hatch flexed. The tiles rose in an arc that made no sense and then lay back down flat. The movement created a pressure change the ROV felt as a shove. I countered without thought, sticks in my fingers, wrists easy. Sand jumped and settled like a breath you pretend you did not take. "We are not in control," Finn said. "We never were," Dr. Patel said. "We passed a test and saved our gear. We did not solve the room." Her voice held no shame. She logged the numbers with neat entries that would read clearly when the world was quieter. "Bring it up," the captain said. He was done being patient. He was also right. The weather window had shifted. The barometer on the bridge had begun a slide. We had a ship, a crew, and a vehicle. We had a family of words to answer later. We did not owe the hole in the ocean anything. I began the ascent. The winch took the load. The line angle plot put the tether clear of the hatch. The ROV rose through darkness toward a lighter darkness. At 900 meters, the EMI spike returned for 3 cycles. The DP groaned and held. The hydrophones recorded one long push that did not fit the earlier 13-second pattern. The captain asked if we were under a squall. The radar showed nothing. On the surface, the swell stayed steady. The push was not wind or current. It was the room down below reminding us we had moved something in it. Lila held the mirror until Finn shook his head. "Let it go," he said. "Anything we send now will arrive late and dirty." She let it go. The noise tapered on its own. At 300 meters, the fiber link threw a shower of single-bit errors and stopped. I felt my spine go cold without naming it. The ROV video froze and then resumed with frame drops. The vehicle kept rising because rise is what happens when you pull a thing tied to a wire upward. Finn rerouted and shaved bandwidth on the camera to keep control. I slowed the ascent to give the fiber loop a chance to cope with whatever washed through the water below us. The loop stopped stuttering. We climbed. Narwhal broke surface at 6:12. The sea had a new chop pushing from the southwest, where no wind had risen yet. Foam formed lines that kept their shape instead of dissolving. Something old under us had pushed, and the surface heard it before the atmosphere did. The captain stood on the wing of the bridge watching the pattern, as if it could be told to stop. We brought the vehicle aboard with smooth hands. No one clapped. No one spoke for a long minute. Lila took her headset off and placed it on the console with care. Finn set the fiber test rack to idle. I set the manipulator to park and killed main power. The ship was loud with familiar noise again. We gathered in the wet lab because it had a hard table and a door we could close. Dr. Patel set the logbook down and wrote the time across the top of a new page. The captain watched the door as if the ocean might open it. The winch operator made tea and did not look at anyone while he poured. We took turns describing only what we had seen with instruments or eyes. The words felt heavy because we wanted them to be light. I reported stick positions and frame angles and light levels. Lila reported settings and times. Finn reported clocks and errors. Dr. Patel drew a circle and 6 lines. "We activated a system," she said. "Not fully, just enough for it to ask for synchronization. We refused to give it control. It accepted a mask." She did not use the word angry. She did not have to. The ship still creaked in a rhythm new to its bones. "We do not publish coordinates," the captain said. His voice was calm, the way a bar is calm when a glass sits near the edge. "We report to the client that the site is not compatible with their request," he continued. "We advise a new box far from here." "The client will ask why," Finn said. "We can tell the truth," Dr. Patel said. "There is an engineered structure under the sediment with unknown effects on acoustic fields and navigation. Sampling here risks equipment and life. We suggest no further activity until an agency with authority takes custody." The captain nodded. He did not say which agency. He did not need to. There is always someone with an emblem for a moment like this. A thud shivered through the hull, as if a container had shifted below, and the captain's eyes went distant for 1 second. He was in the engine room, in his head, checking lashings. He came back and keyed the intercom. "Engineer status," he said. The reply came smooth. "All secure, no movement." He released the button. "So it is outside," he said. "Not us." We all knew that. Saying it made the next hours easier. We set a course to a weather buoy with a dependable satellite link and an empty circle of ocean around it. The DP handed control to the main engines. The ship turned without complaint. The foam lines that had held their shape began to break as the swell direction shifted. Above us, the sky had a ceiling that would go gray by noon. The captain wanted the buoy before noon. He did not say why. He did not have to. The mind reasons better with a schedule. I went back to the ROV bay and checked the manipulator lens where the sheen had touched. A faint mark sat on the glass. I took a swab and capped it, not because I believed it would grow something, but because it would sit better on a shelf than on the lens. The titanium gripper had a film you could catch with a fingernail. I rinsed it with distilled water and collected that too. Lila labeled both tubes with time, depth, and a brief note. We did the work because someone in a lab somewhere would ask for it later, and we would be glad we had it. Finn pulled the data off the ROV's solid-state recorder and parked it on 2 separate drives. He made a third copy on a tape because he kept tapes for things he did not want changed by accident. He did not distrust modern storage. He distrusted the ways people made mistakes when scared. Dr. Patel set a camera over the table and took simple photos of the hand-drawn map of the hatch and our instrument graphs. She kept the drawing on paper. She would not let it exist as only pixels. By 9 o'clock, we were 20 miles from the site. The swell had returned to a pattern that matched the wind. The hydrophones we kept in the water for general listening fed back a sea that sounded right again. Then a tone entered the mix. It sat well above the low pulse we had tracked before. It was clean, almost too clean. Lila eyed the spectrum and narrowed her eyes. "That is a satellite," she said, "or a transmitter with a budget." The captain came into the control room and folded his arms. He did not ask her to enlarge the graph. He had learned to let us talk first. The tone carried a short structure. Pause, structure, pause, then silence that matched orbital periods. It was not for us. It was not aligned to our mirror, not tied to our field. It called to the same place we had been, and I did not need to say so for everyone in the room to feel the shape of that fact. The machine was awake and other ears knew. Dr. Patel looked tired without looking weak. "We will not answer," she said. "We will not relay. We will log." She wrote the time and the frequency on paper. The captain closed the door. "We have to choose who hears this first," he said. "If we call the client, it leaks in a day. If we call national authority, it leaks with a badge. If we call international, it dies in a committee until a ship without a flag shows up at night." He was not cynical. He was practical. The hull felt the sea and told him truth in simple pushes. He expected the same from people and knew he would not get it. Dr. Patel sat down. "We call the weather service first," she said. "If the pulses propagate and make water move, someone needs to know soonest. Then we call the rest." We tried the satellite phone. The link cut in and out. Lila switched to the backup. The backup died at connect. The captain made a face I had seen when an autopilot told a lie. "HF," he said. We had a long-range set for when satellites sulked. Finn tuned for the weather station call sign and drummed his fingers once when the signal scratched back. "Copy," the voice said. We delivered a careful report that said nothing about a hatch and everything about an anomalous acoustic source with potential to modify currents and create surface effects. It was not a deception. It was the piece we were qualified to speak about fast. The operator thanked us and asked for coordinates. The captain gave a box offset by a few miles. He did not trust strangers with dots that mattered to our gear. By noon, the buoy was in sight, a small shape on a gray field. The sky had done what the barometer promised. Mist hung over the deck. The ship slid into station, and the satellite link cleared. The captain gave the main report through encrypted channels with a summary that would land on the right desks. While he did that, I rewound the footage of the sheen touching the lens and counted frames. It advanced a fraction every 20 seconds. It stopped the moment our light left, even though the ROV body still radiated a trace of heat. It reacted to one thing and not another. I logged that. At 12:43, the ocean under us changed again. It was not violent. It was not a wave. It was a slow uprush that lifted the ship a few centimeters and set it back down. The captain grabbed the rail and frowned. He did not order any change. The DP held. The buoy rode it and sent its regular packet without comment. The hydrophones showed the low pulse again, stronger, as if a door farther away had opened, or the door we had found had taken a deeper breath. "Are we still mirroring?" Finn asked. Lila shook her head. "No, we are quiet," she said. "Good," he said. "Let it count without us in the room." Dr. Patel stood by the porthole and watched the water as if it could confess. "It is not angry," she said finally, knowing how the story would be told by others. "It is a regulator. It has a mandate. We touched it with noise. It moved to reduce the difference. It will move again when something else touches it. It has no mercy and no malice. It has work." She did not tell us to feel comfort. She told us to understand the frame. We spent the afternoon building a shutdown plan we could enact if someone above our pay grade told us to return and seal the hatch. It involved sand, an inflatable dome, and a slurry of bentonite we used for casing holes in soft ground. We would blanket the center. We would detune the field. We would stop. It would not be elegant. It might be enough to push the machine into a mode that considered us inert. The captain did not like the part where a heavy bag would have to be flown on a small tether from the ROV and cut loose over the mouth. He wanted redundancies for the cuts and backups for the backups. We wrote them. At dusk, the sky broke into low bands, and the sea went glassy between them. We all knew the look. The wind would go still and then return out of a new corner at midnight. It was a breathing room for the ship. Lila brewed coffee that tasted the way work tastes when you are not yet permitted to sleep. Finn ran a checksum field on every copy of the data. Dr. Patel called a number that forwarded to another number, and then to a voice that did not give a name. She spoke for 3 minutes using careful words. She did not ask permission. She gave notice. At 2010, a plane crossed high above us, too far to hear, just a white cut under the last light. It meant someone with money knew this patch of ocean had earned attention. The captain turned off AIS. The ship did not vanish, but the public map forgot us. He watched the horizon and the empty radar. "We will get company within a day," he said. "Maybe friendly, maybe not. We will be out of the box by dawn." He looked at me. "Sleep in shifts. Keep the hydrophones up. If the pulses change, I want to know." I lay on my bunk fully clothed with the headset on one ear and my hand on the cord. The hull ticked softly as the water tempered its temperature. I thought of the mark on the lens and knew it sat now in a plastic tube the size of my finger. I did not imagine it moving. I did not grant it hunger or curiosity. I saw it the way it had behaved, a skin that reached for warm input, stopped at glass, and quit when light left. In the morning, I would put it under a scope and see if it had structure. If it had none, I would log that too. At 1:13, the pulses changed. Lila called me before the second one arrived. I was in the control room still tugging my jacket into place when the graph wrote a new shape. The low wave stayed, but the pattern above it expanded into 4 tones, then 6. Finn labeled them A through F and traced their intervals. The captain stepped in with wet hair and did not bother with a towel. Dr. Patel stood in the doorway and did not cross the threshold until the 3rd new cycle ended. "It is not for us," she said. "It is a broadcast." The tones climbed, held, fell, and repeated. The surface remained calm. The ship did not shake. The DP held. The buoy sent its packets. Somewhere under the black water, a system not designed by us had stepped into a mode where it told others what it had sensed. Our presence was part of that, and so was the plane, and so was the pattern of noise coming from a dozen shipping lanes across the basin. The machine logged a ledger and sent it to peers we could not see. Dr. Patel closed her eyes for one count and opened them. "We stay quiet," she said. "We are a small number in its table. We keep it small." At dawn, we pointed the bow east. The captain brought the engines to a steady load that made the exhausts sing a low, smooth line. The weather buoy shrank behind us. The satellite link cleared and held. We sent our full report with times, coordinates, graphs, and a recording of the mirror protocol. We sent the lens sample inventory and the plan for burial. We sent the fact that the machine under the Pacific was not a dorm room prank or a temple. It was a field regulator. It was awake. It would not sleep because sleep is for animals, and this thing did not consider the world in that axis. By mid-morning, a gray ship was a smudge on the western line. It did not answer calls, and it did not broadcast an ID. The captain watched it until it vanished into haze. He did not speak the wish on all our tongues, which was that it would keep going past the box and forget the whole. Wishes have no place on a chart. He kept to the line he had drawn last night. The ocean returned to its ordinary work. The hydrophones recorded shrimp crackle and distant propellers. The pulse returned to 13 seconds and then drifted away until it fell below noise. In the ROV bay, I unscrewed the tube with the lens swab and placed a drop under the ship's battered scope. The image showed a lattice of fine threads with knots at regular intervals. At the knots sat grains of something metallic and pale. It looked assembled. It did not twitch or swell. It did not divide. When I turned on the scope's light, the knots brightened and the threads seemed to relax. When I clicked the light off, nothing moved. I made notes and took photos through the eyepiece with my phone because the scope had no camera mount. Lila stood in the doorway and did not step in. "Does it grow?" she asked. "No," I said. "It does not. It arranges." We cleaned the manipulator glass with alcohol, and the mark came off in a single smooth peel that left no residue. I folded the strip into a slide and sealed it with tape. Finn labeled it with the time, the word contact, and a number. Dr. Patel watched and nodded once. "If someone asks us to prove we were there," she said, "we will show them this and the logs. If someone tells us we are wrong, we will give them the coordinates and let them make a better mistake." She said it without spite. She had spent years in rooms where the truth arrived late and was not welcomed. In the afternoon, the wind returned from the north with white tips. The ship shouldered it and kept course. The captain kept AIS dark and the radar alive. The gray ship did not return. The satellite link carried weather, not orders. The world was aware enough to be quiet. We were a moving dot not on public screens, and that suited me. I thought of the hatch and the film and the pulses, and felt the urge to tattoo a rule on the inside of my mouth. Do not ping first in rooms you do not own. It was a simple rule. It should have been obvious. It took us to learn it again. When night fell for the second time since the hatch opened, the ocean looked like it always does at night from a working ship. A black field with its own small lights, a deck slick with spray, a crew walking paths by memory. The machine under us was far behind. It would be under someone else tomorrow. Someone with tools we did not have. Someone with orders that did not include patience. I wrote my notes, closed the book, and put it in the drawer under the console. I know what we did. We woke an old regulator with a soft knock. It rose and asked us to align. We masked ourselves and backed away. It counted, called, and resumed its work. I do not know who built it. I do not know who will answer when it calls louder. I know the sea keeps its own records. We made a mark in one of them. Then we left. If I return, I will bring more sand than noise, and I will tell my hands to move slower than my curiosity. That is the only way to survive conversations that do not need us.